Hello again. Today it's a short video regarding using grids and working with grids and complex building layouts that is not perfectly 90 degrees all the time in reality. This Etabs model is from a real life project that I've worked on, and if we go to one of the plans, we can see that the core was actually not 90 degree with the building, and the building is not directly oriented to the north direction, and it's actually offset at an angle of about 13 degrees from the north direction. So that complicated it a little bit, and it becomes handy when you have the grids for the core wall and you have the grids for the building separate. So for example, if you right click and we go to our set grid system visibility, we can see that we have G1, which is the grid for the core wall system, and we have G2, which is the grid for the building system itself. And we have the G2 switched on right now, which we can see it's the building grids. If we click here to switch it off and we switch the core wall ons by clicking here and clicking apply, we can see that we only have the grids for the core if we are working on modeling the core, for example. Then we can switch it back off and go back to the building grid, and let's click OK here. So far that's not very handy. The actual benefit of it comes when you want to work with elevations. So for example, if I wanted to open one of the core elevations over here, let's switch back our grid on for the core, and let's say I wanted to look at this elevation, which is the core grid elevation A. I can jump into my 3D, click anywhere to activate it, and click on the elevation, set elevation view, and I can basically click core, and then that's my core grids, and I want to look at the elevation of grid A, and straight away I have the elevation of this core wall. Now if I wanted to look at the building elevation instead, say for example the one over here, if you click on it you can see it says this is grid 1K. We know this is grid K, so in this direction it's grid 1, so we can say building grid 1, and we can click here to activate it and click apply, and there we go, we have the grid 1 of the building. So that's very easy to work in elevations with the walls in terms of adding openings, looking at stresses and anything like that. But that's not all as well. So another trick is when you're modeling the slabs, this can be complex. So what you can do here, if you go down to the bottom right hand side, you can actually change the layout from being oriented to the global. You can orient it to the core, which in this case is a 0 degree because it is matching the global orientation. But if I match it to my sorry, you can't see this, let me move it up a little bit. But if I actually choose to match it to my G2 of the building, there you go, we have the building orientation now at the true north, and that makes it much easier when you're modeling and you're cutting and you're assigning stuff, and it's also easier to see if this is how you have it on the drawings as well, for example. Now one last trick that is quite helpful when you're working with grids, say for example now I have this grid, I have this precast wall over here that I want to look at its elevation. And the only way to look at the elevation of a wall is if you have a grid for it, and then you can open it. So especially that it's coming at an angle, it's not really perfectly horizontal to any of the two grids. The only way to do it is to actually draw a grid manually, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So if we switch on our joints first by making them not invisible, and then if you go to draw grids, and then this is a building grid, so I'm going to choose that I'm drawing in my G2, and then I'm going to choose the starting point of the grid, and I'm going to choose the end point of the grid, and there you go, it's called up as grid 1. But in the main building grid I already have grid 1, and Etabs doesn't recognize that, it just adds it as a user grid. So we'll need to go and edit its name manually to be easily referenced in the future. So I can go to edit my grids. I can edit my building grids, click modify and show the system, And then in here you can see that the grids that you user define or manually define, it comes at the bottom, and you can actually change this to, say this is precast 1 grid for example, and I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to click OK, and you can see its name here has changed. So if I go to the elevation on the right hand side and I want to open up the elevation of this wall now and click P1 and click apply, you can see now this is my precast and it's shown here, and I can actually see the intersection with the other grids. If I click here, right click, set the grid system visibility and switch on my building grids and click OK, and click OK, you can see I can see the floor levels, I can see my 3 grids that the wall is crossing here. Actually it's not really 3, I think it's just 2. And if I zoom in, this is the intersection with grid line 1, which is this vertical grid line. This is the intersection with grid line J, which is this horizontal grid line, and this is the intersection with my grid line 1B, which is this internal line. So it shows you the intersection basically with the grids in both directions, in case if you wanted to split it at the grid for example, which is quite common. If you have something that you want to join at the grid, you can easily select the wall, you can go to edit and divide your shell. So you can go to edit, shells, divide shells, and you can choose to break them down at the selection with the grids, and if you click apply, you'll see that your wall now is broken down at this intersection. Let's say you only want to break it at only this grid, you can easily select these 2, you can delete them, you can select this one, and you can go to the tool on the left here, which is the reshape tool, and we can use the reshape to select this one and click here, extend it and snap to the point at the top, and there we go, we have created the breakup location, and we can break up the floors below by using the divide at selected joints on the edge. And we can break up our wall at this location for example, either for better meshing or for other purposes. Actually I'm at the wrong floor here, I've broken it down at level 7 and level 6, so let me go down. Yep, there we go, we see that it's broken down here. Let's say for whatever reason you wanted to mesh a slab here, or the wall is stopping and you want a better mesh accuracy, you definitely want to mesh the precast where there is this continuity like this as well, but that's a side topic. So by the way, if you're interested into going deeper into lateral loads analysis and design, as well as modeling a complete full building on the finite element analysis software called Etabs, you can check out the links in the description of the video below. There is a full course that I've prepared on Udemy, and you can access it with the link below for a heavily discounted price. I hope you've got the point from this video today, which is basically seeing the grids used at different angles and different orientations, and they're used for different purposes. You can have as many grids as you want in Etabs, and the purpose is really just to enable you to model and look at the results of different components quite easily, compared to just having one big grid, or actually not having grids at all, which makes it more difficult because you can only see the results in 3D in this case. That's it for this one. See you in the next video.